Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading way up north, northwest corner of Minnesota, actually. We're digging into the story of Lake Bronson State Park.
Right. And it's more than just a nice park. It's got this fascinating background where the land itself tells stories. Stories of, well, human resilience and just the sheer power of nature.
Exactly. That part of Minnesota, it's such an interesting mix. You've got these huge peat bogs, wide open prairies.
Yeah, and then patches of dense coniferous forest. Lake Bronson State Park sits right in that transition zone where the prairie kind of gives way to aspen parkland.
Which makes it ecologically really rich, doesn't it?
It really does. And the lake itself, Lake Bronson, that's a big deal up there. It's one of the only larger bodies of water nearby.
So it's always been important, historically and for wildlife.
Absolutely. So our plan for this deep dive is to really unpack the park, its history, what makes it tick, those little details that, make it a great spot for anyone who loves exploring and learning new things.
Okay, let's start with something really unique. A town that basically became a lake. How does that even happen?
Right. It's quite the story. It starts with the original town, Bronson, named after Mr. and Mrs. Giles Bronson, who homesteaded there way back in 1882.
Okay, the Bronsons.
Yeah. And their farm actually had the local post office. It was called Pussy.
Percy. Any idea where that name came from? Seems a bit random.
Well, there are a couple of theories. One is that Giles Bronson named it after his old home township in Ontario.
Okay, makes sense.
But another source, the Minnesota Historical Collections, suggests maybe it was named for an early hunter and trapper called Howard Percy, who was known in the area.
Huh. One of those little historical footnotes you stumble across. I love those.
Me too. But the really pivotal moment for Bronson comes later, with the lake. We need to jump forward to the 1930s, the Dust Bowl era.
The drought. That hit this area hard, too.
Devastatingly hard. Wells in Bronson and in nearby Halleck, they just started drying up. People were facing a serious water crisis.
Okay, so they needed a permanent solution.
Exactly. And the solution they landed on was pretty ambitious. Dam the South Fork 2 River to create a reservoir, a reliable water source.
Wow. A big project for that time, especially during the Depression. When did they start?
Construction kicked off in 1936. A huge community effort, really.
But it wasn't straightforward, was it? I read something about quicksand.
Oh, yeah. A massive engineering hurdle. The spot they chose for the dam. It was sitting on about 100 feet of quicksand.
100 feet? How do you even begin to build a dam on that? That sounds impossible.
It almost was. But the engineer, a guy named Clifford Holland, he came up with this, well, really brilliant solution.
Okay, I need to hear this.
So what he did was he had these pipes driven deep down into the quicksand layer.
Pipes. How would that help?
Well, the idea was that the sheer weight of the dam itself as it was built would force the water trapped in the quicksand up through those pipes.
Dewatering it, basically.
Exactly. It allowed the sand and silt to compact and solidify, creating a stable enough base to support the dam structure. Really innovative stuff.
That is incredible. Just using the weight of the problem to solve the problem underneath it. Can you still see any evidence of this today?
You absolutely can. If you go look at the spillway, those very pipes that Holland designed are still visible.
No way. That's amazing. A direct link back to that ingenuity.
It really is, and it just underscores how crucial this lake became. I mean, think about it. The water source was so central to their survival and identity.
That they renamed the town itself.
Precisely. Bronson became Lake Bronson. The town is literally named after the lake that saved it.
From a town named for pioneers to a town named for a man-made lake born from crisis. That's quite a narrative arc.
It really is.
Okay, so we have the human story, the creation of the lake. But let's pull back, look at the deeper history. The land itself. Glaciers played a big role here, right?
Oh, absolutely fundamental. We have to talk about Glacial Lake Agassiz. This was, what, maybe 8,000 years ago? An immense prehistoric lake.
Immense is putting it mildly, wasn't it? Bigger than all the Great Lakes combined.
That's the scale we're talking about. It covered huge parts of Manitoba, Ontario, Saskatchewan, North Dakota, and Minnesota. Formed because the retreating glaciers blocked the natural northward drainage.
So this whole landscape was underwater for a long time. And when the glaciers melted and the lake finally drained, it left its mark.
Definitely. As the water levels dropped, it created these distinct shorelines, these gravel ridges, across the otherwise pretty flat terrain.
Like bathtub rings, but on a massive geological scale.
Exactly. And one of these ancient beach ridges, it's called the Macaulayville Beach Ridge. It actually runs right through Lake Bronson State Park.
So you can literally stand on an ancient shoreline from thousands of years ago.
You can hike along parts of it. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
And that connects back to the dam, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. They cleverly built the dam in a natural low spot, a kind of notch that water had already eroded into one of these old beach ridges over centuries.
So human engineering meeting deep geological time. That's fantastic.
It's a perfect example of it.
Okay, so we've got this incredible backstory. What about today? If you visit Lake Bronson State Park, what's there to do? I assume water activities are usually front and center?
Normally, yes. Lake Bronson is super popular for water recreation. It has a really nice swimming beach, usually good fishing,
Fishing, boating, canoeing, that sort of thing.
all of that. They typically have boat and canoe rentals available right in the park, too. Makes it easy.
But right now there's something important visitors need to know, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely crucial. As we're recording this May 2025, there's a major dam replacement project underway.
Replacing that original 1930s structure.
That's right. It's a big job. And because of it, the lake itself, the lake bed, it's currently closed to all public use.
Yeah.
No fishing, no boating.
And this is expected to last for a while.
The current estimate is through 2026. So it's really, really important for anyone planning a trip in the near future to check the Minnesota DNR website first. Get the latest updates on the project and any associated trail closures.
Definitely check before you go. That's key advice. So, with the lake itself off limits for now, what else does the park offer? Camping?
Oh, plenty of camping. They have, I think, over 194 semi-modern campsites. Some have electricity.
Nice. Any more rustic options?
Yep. There are hike-in sites if you want more seclusion, canoe-in sites for when the lake reopens, obviously, and also a primitive group camp area.
Good variety. Reservations needed, I assume?
Yes, reservations are required for all campsites. Always a good idea to book ahead, especially for popular times.
Makes sense. Okay, camping's covered. What about hitting the trails?
Hiking. Lots of options there, too. About 14 miles of hiking trails, mostly rated easy, so pretty accessible.
Do they follow the lake or go through different areas?
Both, really. Some trails will eventually parallel the lake again, offering nice views. Others wind through the aspen parkland forest and bits of prairie. There's also a specific 1-mile self-guided interpretive trail, the High Bank Trail.
Oh, that sounds good. Learn a bit as you walk.
Exactly. It points out interesting natural features.
And it's not just hiking, right? Other trail uses.
Correct. There are about 5 miles of bike trails. Some are even paved, which is nice. And for horseback riders, there are 8 miles of trails with dedicated parking for trailers.
In winter, does it shut down?
Not at all. In winter, it shifts to snowmobiling and snowshoeing on groomed trails. It really is a year-round park, even with the current lake situation.
That's good to know. Now, you mentioned earlier that structure built back in the 30s, the observation tower.
Ah, yes. The WPA-built observation tower. It's a landmark. Apparently, it's the largest observation tower in the entire Minnesota State Park system.
The largest. Wow. Worth a climb then.
Definitely. The views from the top are supposed to be fantastic. You get this amazing panoramic perspective of the whole park, the surrounding landscape, that transition zone we talked about.
See where the prairie meets the aspen?
Yeah.
Maybe even trace that old beach ridge. Cool. Any other facilities? Visitor center.
Yes, there's a visitor center. It has exhibits about the park's ecology, the prairie, and aspen parkland habitats. Good place to get oriented.
Probably has restrooms and basics too.
Yep, restrooms, info, and there's even a playground nearby for kids. And scattered around, you'll find picnic areas, some with shelters and tables for a nice lunch spot.
Okay, so even with the lake temporarily out of commission, there's still a lot to do. Camping, hiking, biking, history, views.
Absolutely. Plenty to explore.
Let's dive a bit deeper into the wildlife now.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's in this transition zone. That usually means interesting diversity, right?
It really does, because you have habitats meeting, you get species from both. So you might find birds more typical of open prairie, like upland sandpipers or sharp-tailed grouse.
Okay.
But you also have forest dwellers. And, maybe the most exciting for many visitors, American elk.
Elk in northwest Minnesota. I wouldn't have immediately guessed that.
Yeah, it's one of the notable species there. They tend to like those aspen parkland areas, the edges where forest meets more open ground.
Any tips for spotting them? Best time of day.
Like a lot of wildlife, dawn and dusk are usually your best bets. They tend to be more active then. It takes patience and luck, of course.
Always does. And birds. Sounds like a good spot for bird watching.
Definitely. You get waterfowl, especially when the lake is full, drawn to the water. But you also get lots of warblers and other songbirds in the woods.
You mentioned a specific observation area.
Yes, the wildlife observation area. And get this, 92 different bird species have been recorded just in that one spot.
92? Wow. Any standouts?
Well, things like pileated woodpeckers, those
Yeah.
big, impressive woodpeckers, Canada geese, blue-winged teal are common, plus a whole range of warblers, sparrows, finches, depending on the season. It's a rich area for birding.
Clearly. Now, you mentioned ecological classifications earlier. Tall grass, aspen, parklands, province. Could you break that down a bit? What does that classification tell us?
Sure, think of it like nested categories that scientists use to describe ecosystems. The province is the big picture. Tallgrass aspen parklands describes this large region where prairie grasses and aspen trees mix, influenced by climate and that glacial history, especially Lake Agassiz.
Okay, the broad region.
Then you narrow it down. The park is in the Lake Agassiz, aspen parkland section and subsection, and even finer detail, specific land type associations like Bronson Lake Plain.
So it's like a detailed address for the ecosystem.
Exactly. It helps scientists understand precisely what geological and climatic factors created the specific mix of plants and animals you find right there in the park. It's the ecological fingerprint, like you said.
And the plants themselves reflect that.
Absolutely. You find communities like the Aspen Parkland Complex, which is typical, but also stands of bur oak woodland, plus different kinds of prairie, wet meadows, marshes.
A real mosaic of habitats.
Which in turn supports that variety of wildlife we talked about, not just elk, but also things like American black bear, white-tailed deer. It's all connected.
And within that web, I imagine there are some species that need extra attention. Conservation concerns.
That's a really important point, yes. Within Lake Bronson State Park, they've documented 13 bird species, 4 insect and arachnid species, and 16 plant species that actually have recognized conservation status in Minnesota.
16 plants alone.
Yeah. So it highlights why protecting these habitats is so crucial. It's not just about the common species, but also these rarer ones that depend on these specific conditions.
A good reminder of the park's ecological significance. Okay, let's shift to practicalities. If someone is inspired to plan a future trip, especially once the lake work is done, what do they need to know? Location.
Right. It's in Kitson County, way up there, about a mile east of the town of Lake Bronson itself. The main access is off County State Aid Highway 28.
And that connects to a main highway.
Yeah, Highway 28 connects to U.S. Highway 59. The park entrance is about 15 miles east of the town of Halleck if you're coming from the west on 59.
Got it. And it's a pretty big park.
Decent size. The statutory boundary is over 4,300 acres, and the state owns just over 2,800 acres of that.
What about park hours? When can you get in?
Standard state park hours, generally, open daily from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. That's when the gate typically closes.
And fees. Need a park pass.
Yes, you need a Minnesota State Parks vehicle permit. You can buy a daily one or an annual one, which is usually a better deal if you plan to visit more parks. You can get them at the park entrance or online beforehand.
Good tip. And if people have specific questions, can they contact the park directly?
They sure can. The park's address is 3793 230th St., Box 9, Lake Bronson, MN 56734, and the phone number is 218-754-2200.
Okay, great. And let's just circle back one more time to that dam project because it's so important right now.
Absolutely. Cannot stress this enough. As of May 2025, the dam replacement is ongoing. The lake bed and lake are closed completely.
And some trails might be affected too.
Yes, potentially some trail closures for safety reasons related to the construction. The project is expected to run through 2026.
So the absolute best advice is check the Minnesota DNR website before you even think about heading up there.
Precisely. Get the latest, most current information directly from the source. Things can change, so always check first.
Good. Now, if you are heading up to that corner of the state, maybe visiting the park for the trails or camping, is there anything else nearby worth checking out, like in Halleck?
Halleck is the main nearby town, about 15 miles west. It's got your basic services, places to eat, that sort of thing. And for those interested, it does have a local craft brewery called Revelation Ale.
Ah, a potential post-hike stop.
Could be. Always nice to check out local spots.
So wrapping things up, Lake Bronson State Park really feels like a place where multiple stories converge, doesn't it?
It really does. You've got the deep geological time of Lake Agassiz, the human history of settlement and facing that drought crisis, the engineering ingenuity.
And then the resulting ecology of this unique transition zone landscape. It all comes together there.
It makes you think, doesn't it, about how a community faced with a natural disaster like that drought could literally reshape their environment to survive and build a future.
And leave behind this legacy that, still offers recreation and a connection to nature today, even with a temporary disruption.
Exactly. So maybe when that dam work is finished and the lake refills, you, our listener, might consider a trip. You could see those spillway pipes we talked about, hike an ancient beach ridge, and just imagine the sheer scale of that glacial lake that once defined this whole region.
A powerful thought to end on. Thanks for diving deep into Lake Bronson with us today.